Welcome back. I'm Casey Campbell from Great Lakes Post, and we are pleased to be joined by Zach Sturniolo of Frontstretch. Of course, who covers NASCAR. How's it going?
It's going well, Casey. How are you doing?
Doing well. The schedule got released today, so that is why, of course, I brought you on because we got some things to discuss with the schedule. If you haven't heard, the Cup Series schedule was released today, and there was a lot of changes to it. But before we'll go through it, we'll reveal the entire schedule in case you haven't heard. But overall, what do you think about this?
Overall, I like the fact that they're taking some different chances here, moving some things around. I know we'll get into the meat of all these changes here in a little bit, but you bring in a new venue in Worldwide Technology Raceway and Gateway. That's been rumored for a little while now. We get to see that officially join the Cup Series schedule this year. There's a lot of racing next year. I think that's the big takeaway, is that there's only one off weekend from when we start the Daytona 500 all the way through Phoenix. There's only one weekend off, and we're even racing on Easter Sunday this year. So lots of change, mixing some things up a little bit. It's not the typical stale NASCAR schedule that we've been used to for a really long time in the sport.
Okay, so I just literally pulled the schedule up on my phone so I can reference it. We start off the biggest change I think is right off the bat, because we got the Clash, and it's at the LA Coliseum of all places, Los Angeles, California, Tinseltown. My goodness, what do you think?
I think it's awesome, honestly. It's a market that's fairly well underserved, especially these last couple of years, because typically we've been racing at Fontana, but we haven't been able to go the last 2 years, or at least this year because of COVID. And then, we throw another race in that area, but we're racing at a football stadium at a quarter-mile purpose-built short track with the next gen car. It's a heck of a way to start this 2022 season. I'm all for it. Why not take the chance? It's an exhibition race. It doesn't have to be at Daytona. I would have honestly preferred to see them use the old car, like the current car that they're using right now, instead of the next gen, just because I don't know how willing drivers are going to be to use the bumper in the Clash next year, because they'd like to preserve their new shiny equipment for the next gen. But that said, the idea to move there overall, a great idea in my opinion.
I think they may want to use like the next gen car to get some big time corporate sponsors. With the Super Bowl there that next week, which also happens to be in Los Angeles, and basically every celebrity in the world is probably going to be there as well. So I guess that's why they're doing it. But who knows?
No doubt.
Fun. Let's see what happens.
Absolutely.
All right, we got the Duel of Daytona set February 17th, the Daytona 500 February 20th, Auto Club February 27th. Las Vegas, March 6th, the West Coast Swing, that does not change. Phoenix on March 13th, the first Phoenix date. Atlanta is on March 20th. But here's the next one. COTA has been moved from May to March this year, and it looks like probably because of, the weather, because maybe let's see what COTA is going to bring another chance with this.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. Obviously, this year's race was marred by rain. You move that back to March. I don't know exactly what the weather is like in Austin around that time of year, but I assume it's going to be quite a bit drier, and at the very least, it's going to be cooler. I think moving that from May to March is a great idea, especially late March. It's fairly early in the schedule, but it's not unlike this year where we had the Daytona road course as the second race of the season and you jump right into a road course. If we kind of get a few ovals out of the way first next year with Daytona, Auto Club, Vegas, Phoenix, Atlanta, before we see our first road course of the year. And I think that's a good move by NASCAR.
Of course. Richmond has been moved up. That first date going to be in April, first week of that. Martinsville, the Saturday night race returns April 9th. Here's the interesting one. A lot of people fired up about this next one. Bristol Dirt is back. We knew that, but it's going to be at night. Most dirt races are ran at night, but that's kind of not the controversy that it's always is, but it's when it is. It's Easter Sunday. For the first time since 1989, NASCAR will be racing on Easter Sunday, and Ben Kennedy kind of talked about it on the media call today. NFL is Thanksgiving, the NBA is Christmas Day. I think NASCAR kind of felt, hey, let's make Easter Sunday kind of our day to, after. And I know this is going to be probably the one of the most controversial topics because Easter Sunday is always this is the holiday of the day that the day that Jesus was of course it's a religious holiday, and of course the day that Jesus rose from the dead and died for the sins and all that stuff. And a lot of people are kind of, maybe we kind of want to just celebrate with our families on that day.
Well, I think when you look at it from from the perspective of where it falls in the season, I always felt like that Easter weekend was a really good time for an early break in the season. You get a couple months of straight racing out of the way from February through around that time in April, depending on when Easter falls that given year, of course. I always thought that was a good off weekend for them to then throw that back into a Sunday night dirt race at Bristol. It's a bold move. I give NASCAR the credit for trying something new once again here, but at the same time, I don't necessarily know if I agree with trying to cram all these races into, especially the first half of the season. The season ends, and I know we'll get to this, the season ends the first weekend of November at Phoenix on November 6th. I think taking that weekend off in April, pushing the date, the rest of the season back, another week or two wouldn't have been the worst thing. I give the teams another off weekend, but NASCAR doesn't really want to compete with the NFL come November. That's why they only have one race now in November. So I think that's more of a product along those lines than it is anything else.
Yeah. Sounds good with that. Talladega, April 24th, Dover, May 1st, Darlington, May 8th, Mother's Day weekend. Typically, that's probably going to be the throwback race. Kansas, May 15th. The All-Star race is back in its traditional date on May 22nd, but it's at Texas again. And I know a lot of people are not happy about that either.
Yeah, that's the other thing for me is, do we really need an all-star race anymore? And I know that's a debate that everyone's kind of having at this point when everyone is, on the track at the same time like they've always been. But I feel like with more and more drivers getting into the all-star race, does it really have a necessary spot on the schedule anymore? I tend to lean toward the fact that it's kind of overstayed its welcome a little bit. But it's here, and we'll see what this next gen car race is like on the mile and a halves. I think, the week prior to that, they're at Kansas. That'll probably be a little bit of a tale of what we're gonna see that all-star race look like on May 22nd.
Yeah. Charlotte Coke 600, of course, May 29th, Memorial Day weekend. Then the new track is on. Not as many new tracks as we saw this year, but NASCAR is coming to Worldwide Technology Raceway, or otherwise known as Gateway. Of course, the St. Louis market is huge in racing. Of course, WWT Raceway is only 5 miles away from downtown St. Louis. The Coliseum is literally in downtown Los Angeles. So it looks like NASCAR is going to more urban areas, but WWT Raceway is on the Cup Series schedule. What do you think?
Well, I think it's a great move because it's a unique racetrack in itself. It's 1.25 miles, different sized radius turns, so it's almost like Darlington in that sense. But it's a flat track, kind of. I don't know. We don't know what the horsepower packages are going to be like with these next gen cars, but I think that's a track that is capable of putting on good racing. We'll get to Pocono a little bit here, but Gateway got onto the schedule by Pocono losing one of its 2 dates. And so is that, that's the compromise there. You take one race out of this New York metro market for a spot in the St. Louis market. And honestly, I get it. we'll see how Gateway and that community responds to a date on the Cup schedule and see how many fans come out for it. But I mean, they've put on great shows for the Xfinity Series in the past, although they haven't raced there in quite some time. But they still got the truck races there. They've still got IndyCar races there, and they turn out some really great crowds. So I'm excited to see what kind of a weekend that is in St. Louis.
Yeah, that area's been clamoring, and we will get to Pocono in just a moment. Sonoma is going to be June 12th. Then the off week, of course, all the races I just mentioned, they will be on. That is the Fox portion of the season. Nashville, when we return there, that's when NBC starts their portion of the season on June 26th. Road America, July 3rd. Atlanta, July 10th, the second Atlanta date on that new configuration. New Hampshire, July 17th. Pocono, July 24th. And obviously, in case you haven't heard, you are from that area. You worked for the local paper for years. Of course, you know that track probably better than all of us. Of course, did lose a date. It was mentioned, and now it's kind of confirmed. But what's it gonna do? I mean, no doubleheader race. I mean, you probably know this probably better than all of us. Kind of explain what it kind of means for that.
Well, I think it's interesting because from a fan perspective, being there for the doubleheader last year was surreal because that was, it was during the COVID era. There were no fans allowed on the property. And so Pocono didn't really get to experience what a doubleheader could mean for its fans and its community and what it would shape out for the at-track experience. Seeing it this year, the infield was packed. It was sold out, but it really felt as full as I've ever seen that place. The grandstands were packed both Saturday and Sunday. But I think what this comes down to, as far as the move to take away one of its dates and not continue the doubleheader, really falls back to television. If I remember correctly, that Saturday television rating was pretty dismal. And unfortunately, NASCAR is becoming more and more a made-for-TV sport. And because of that, if you're not pulling ratings, especially when there aren't really any other main sports going on. I mean, you've got the MLB going on in June, July, that time of the year, but really that's it.
Going on as well. So
right. So it's a bummer for sure for this area. I think the local economy kind of takes a hit to an extent, but at the same time, they only had one weekend this year as well. So it's not that huge of a change. But I think when you eliminate the money that comes in from the television side, when you take away one of those cup dates, that could impact what we see of Pocono going forward. It'll be interesting to see how the leadership over there responds. We've seen them put out a statement today saying obviously that they're committed to putting on the best experience possible. And I have no doubt that they will, but it'll be interesting to see exactly what they do to maximize having just one cup race next year.
Yeah, we'll have to be interested to see that. Indy Road Course will be on July 31st. Michigan on August 7th. Michigan, of course, moved up 2 weeks. Richmond. Oh boy, big changes there. They still get 2 dates, but they're out of the playoff conversation.
And what's interesting here is looking at the schedule. Both races are on a Sunday. To me, that tells me that those are going to be 2-day races instead of night races. Obviously, we haven't heard that confirmed one way or the other at this point, but it certainly seems like those are going to be day races for Richmond. We saw the spring race this year was a day race. Moving that second date out of the playoffs, though, I think we'll get to what replaces that in the playoffs. But I think what really is interesting is you're taking a short track out of the playoffs. We were just there. The excitement of that race wasn't it wasn't what we saw at Darlington. Let's put it that way. And so the move makes sense, I think, overall. You're still keeping 2 races in that kind of DC, Richmond, Maryland area. And that's important. So it'll be interesting to see how that's received, but I think it's a good move overall for the sake of NASCAR.
Yeah, for sure. So Watkins Glen comes after August 21st. Of course, that's the date, and then they're gonna follow that up with Daytona, the regular season finale. I think it's just gonna stay put because Daytona's like with this format. I think Daytona. I know people are still angry about taking it away July 4th. Eventually, I do think that it will come back to that date. Everything will be right with the world, but I know that Road America has been a pretty good, move in there. But I know it's going to be debated among NASCAR fans about that.
No doubt. The July 4th race at Daytona was a staple for so many years for good reason. But the show that Daytona puts on at the end of the regular season, I feel like is really a perfect way to segue uh, into the playoffs, and also give the drivers who are, let's say 20th on back in points between 20th and 30th, really does give them a viable shot to get into the playoffs. And there can be, you can debate whether you want to put all your tokens into one final last ditch effort for Daytona to get into the playoffs, but it's not like we're adding a super speedway to the regular season. This is a date that has been in the regular season for the entirety of that we've had playoffs. It just is later in that regular season now. Now it gives you guys those guys who are like, let's say 25th in points, a shot to go ahead, win the race, and find their way in. So I think it works as that regular season finale.
Yeah. So now we get to the playoffs, and there's some changes there, and we'll get to them in a minute. Darlington still kicks off the playoffs Labor Day weekend, Southern 500. That's probably likely going to be a night race, as as Bob Pockers just put on Twitter just maybe today. But Kansas has been moved up, and also Texas has been moved up as well. So Kansas takes the Richmond's date, which is this year. So that'll be Sunday, September 11th. That's probably going to be another day race. We have the Bristol night race, which follows, and then Texas is on September 25th. Kansas moved up a little bit early. I think it's interesting.
I like that move, honestly, because by taking Richmond out of the playoffs, you have to shift some dates around one way or the other. You get a traditional mile and a half in that first round of the playoffs now with Kansas there. I like that move because it kind of diversifies that first round. This year we have Darlington, Richmond, and Bristol. That's two short tracks and one other kind of just unique, quirky track in Darlington. Next year you've still got Darlington, but then you get the traditional mile and a half, and then you get a short track in there. So I think that's good. And then by Texas opening that next round, I think that's another good move. I feel like Texas wasn't really doing much for really anyone in that penultimate round. It's fine in that round of 8, but I like moving it into the round of 12 a lot better, honestly.
Yeah, we'll have to see. But here's another interesting thing I just thought about. Kansas, of course, is where the ARCA championship usually ends up. So it'll be quite interesting. Of course, I heard from ARCA officials, it looks like, and maybe after Thanksgiving is when we'll see that schedule. And also for an update, the Xfinity and Truck Series schedule, it's likely that's going to be out in pretty much the next few weeks. So definitely going to be interesting to see what those two series have, as well as the ARCA Menard series as well. So going to be interesting there. All right, continuing on, Talladega, October 2nd, Charlotte Roval on October 9th. Vegas moves back to October 16th. I think that's good for everybody because I know that Las Vegas in September, they got some pretty hot temperatures over there.
No doubt. The later in the year, the closer to winter that Vegas can fall, I think, is the better for everyone, which is why, that its first date is March 6th. Going back there in October is a heck of a lot better than seeing it in September.
Yeah. And then I think the other big change, I think got a lot of people excited. Homestead is back in the playoffs, but not as the championship finale. It'll be the third to last race, the second in the round of 8. It'll be on October 23rd. I think in the next few years, I think there's a lot of conversation. Maybe Homestead could be the championship finale again.
Well, to me, there was no, and maybe it's because we got so used to it because it was there from 2002 all the way through 2019 as the finale. But man, there's just something that feels right about that place crowning a champion. especially in this format. I feel like having to go through, and that's why I like this move so much. Honestly, this is probably my favorite move of the schedule changes, because you put Miami back in the playoffs in the round of 8. You still have to go through Miami to win a championship. And I think that, to me, really, really kind of highlights what a driver's able to do. And obviously we don't know yet what this next gen car is going to require of the drivers, and how it's going to test them compared to how we see the Gen 6 car right now. But I think it's just a great move to move that back into the playoffs in the round of 8. Is if it's not going to be the finale, that's the right round for Miami to show up.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, at Martinsville will be the round of 8, October 30th. The championship race, as it was previously announced, it will be in Phoenix on November 6th. That is the 2022 Cup Series schedule. Your overall impressions of it?
I like it. Like I said, Miami's no question my favorite move of this whole thing. Bristol Dirt on a Sunday, on Easter Sunday, is a bold move, but we'll see how that works. I'm not a huge fan of that, but and I'm also not a huge fan of only having one off weekend. But overall, NASCAR is taking some changes. They're willing to make changes now, which is something we've not seen from leadership in really before these last couple of years. And you give tracks like Circuit of the Americas a second chance. Same with Road America and Nashville. You give a new market a chance with the Cup Series race in Gateway. Overall, and obviously we talked about the clash right off the bat at the LA Coliseum. I don't think you can go wrong with any of those moves. The right way to go. I think I think NASCAR is heading in the right direction. There were a couple things that I would have liked to see kind of different, but for what NASCAR is trying to do right now and the TV partners, I think this makes sense.
Yeah. So you talked about what you didn't see. What a lot of conversation was, the Chicago street course. I know there was talks about the Meadowlands and all that fun stuff. Chicagoland Speedway not hosting a day, Kentucky Speedway not hosting a day. I know those two tracks were also talked about that. No Nashville Fairgrounds, no North Wilkesboro. And the interesting thing is, I know there's one particular area that is getting a lot of talk right now and will probably likely host a race pretty soon. And I think you know which area that is, and that's the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. And I think NASCAR needs to have been there for quite a long time. We've seen a lot of drivers like Greg Biffle, like Casey King come out from that area and be successful in NASCAR, but they've been severely underserved as far as from seeing a true NASCAR product in their area. It's just not happened, and really in this era of NASCAR. So I would love to see NASCAR up that way. It'll be interesting to see if anything does come of that Chicago street course. I think iRacing going ahead and getting an actual scan of that tells you that it's far more likely than it is not. But I'm kind of happy that they're not rushing it onto the schedule either. Same thing with North Wilkesboro. There's a lot of talk about what might happen with that. It sounds like they're close to bringing a national touring series to North Wilkesboro as soon as next year. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. But I think it's okay that NASCAR isn't the first that the Cup Series at least isn't the first touring series back at Wilkesboro. There's a lot that can be moved around down the road, but you don't want to jump. You don't want to jump the gun too quickly here either, and start making super radical changes where markets may not be as ready as you'd like them to be.
Yeah, for sure. And that's it's gotta, everything's gotta really get going on that, but it's definitely something to keep your eye on when 2023, 2024 comes around, and especially when the TV contracts are up. That's it. You're going to really see the massive changes, and maybe even changes to the ladder. Who knows of how to get to the Cup Series, because I've heard some stuff about that. So
sure,
definitely going to be interesting to see as we come along. But Zach Sturniolo from Frontstretch.com, thank you so much for coming on and talking some schedule. The 2022 schedule is out. Let me know in the comments what you think of it. Zach, of course, thanks for coming on. This is the first time we've had you on. Maybe we'll get you on the preview show one time or something.
Sounds great. I appreciate you having me on here, Casey. Thank you.
All right.